Shalom, Rastafari. Baruchu bless. You know, it is me, 27, right? And coming to around the close of this, Miyaziyah 27. The interesting thing about this day is that the Abba, he actually lays out a blueprint for Aina. He actually lays out a blueprint for all his children, you know, all the righteous children. All the Ethiopians at home and abroad all over the world. But the only problem is that you know, and catching some vids and looking at some stuff that some brothers and sisters, you know, that they have been speaking about, having conversation about, is the idea of this the Messiahs. So we want to give a special thanks out to the I Wyndham Yadam Baruchu blessed for the information. You know, blessing to the I and the I sister wife, blessings in spirit and truth, in and through Jesus Christos and the Kedamawi Haile Selassie. But there was a subject matter. I want to get the I thanks for the Hudade information. You know, blessings and give thanks in and through Jesus Christos and the Kedamawi Haile Selassie. But what's interesting is that in this time, really in this day, we want to thank the Abba, His Imperial Majesty, because this is actually liberation time. You know, Jah bless it. This is actually liberation time. You know what I'm saying? Straight up liberation time. And we just want to go over. We really want to go over the speech that His Imperial Majesty made on May 5th, right? On here, Miyaziyah 27, right? In 1934, May 5th, 1941, according to the Gregorian calendar, you know, the modern day, the Western calendar, the USA calendar, you know, the modern, which would be really modern day Roman calendar, according to the biblical, you know, the biblical description of the whole scheme of really what's going on, you know what I mean, with Shaitan. Now what you have is a hijacking, really, you know what I'm saying, is a national hijacking. But once we get back to the righteous principles of Elohim, or the righteous principles of Jah Rastafari, once we get to that righteous principle, we'll overstand. But the problem is that we hear there's this talk about a Messiah, really. You know what I'm saying? There's this talk about let's say many Messiahs, like all of us are many Messiahs. And we can understand this because I seen this conversation, you know, amongst some, and probably, you know, we'll have to do a presentation on that, so we can over you know what I mean, we can go over that and explain that. But the idea of the Messiahs, right? And we look at a lot of ancient Egyptology and Egyptologists, brothers and sisters who speak, you know, in the African conscious community, and amongst different other, if you will, mansions of the house of the true house of the one true God. You know what I mean? But in order to understand the object, the idea of many messiahs, right, is broken down into that these two messiahs really are this one messiah, right? These two messiahs really become one messiah, which are three messiahs, really, but are the supreme messiah, really. That's the whole point, is that it's to say that an object that if we are all messiahs, that we come from one supreme messiah. Some form of fashion, we come from one supreme messiah. So on this day, on May 5th, we want to read His Imperial Majesty's speech, because there's been no better template that's been set, rather than the template that's been set by His Imperial Majesty, Gedamawi Haile Selassie. So the template that's really been set by His Imperial Majesty, because we don't understand is a lot of people will speak about a contingency plan. You know, a contingency plan. Like people will say, well, what's your contingency plan? There is no better contingency plan than the one that the Abba laid out for us. In fact, there is no better contingency plan than the one that Haile Selassie laid out. There's many of people who speak about, you know, leadership and getting the people's, the black people's, you know, grounded or getting them to come together. But the first thing and foremost thing is really to understand is that to be able to unify them under one common nation that already does exist. And then for the right reasons, because if we was able to unify with that one common template, we'd be better off than saying that we are all kings and queens, because everybody can't be the queen, the king, and the queen. If everybody is king and queens, there's no foundation. You know what I mean? It's like only, you know, it's like if we're a car, everybody can't be the motor. Somebody got to be the wheel. Someone else has to be the other wheel. Somebody has to be, you know what I mean? Somebody got to be the fourth wheel. If it's a Cadillac, they might have to be the fifth wheel. You know what I mean? But either way, all the parts to the car, everybody cannot be the motor. Everybody cannot be the motor. And it's like, and we all messiahs, there's no motor, there's no supreme, there's no base, there's no foundation for what we're coming from, what we seek to do, or how we're going to seek to move on in our movement, or what we got to get to. Culturally, some people may be kind of afraid of the truth, the real truth, but still, what needs to be understood is that if you pay attention to the scriptures, you know, to the Bible, to the Bible, and you're able to link it back with the truth about Black Jesus Christos, Black Jesus Christ, and the kingdom of God in Christ through the Father, His Imperial Majesty, Gedamawi Haile Selassie, the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, the king of the Ethiopian monarchy, the Solomonic monarchy of David, you know, passed down the line of David, the 225th king from the seed line of David, the bloodline of David, and that's what this is all about, is the root kingdom, the prophecy of it, the Bible giving the prophecy of it, and not only that, but the Father actually giving us the template to be able to carry on in the structure, in an ordered form of government. We are a government, but it's like you fall back from, you cannot fall back. You know, we are a government, but most people falling back from their duties. Most don't want to do their duties in order to function in this government and to make this government function in spirit and truth. So we want to read the speech by His Imperial Majesty that was made this day, May 5th, 1941, Miyazia 27th, 1934, May 5th, 1941, right? From My Life in Ethiopia's Progress, Volume 2 of His Imperial Majesty's autobiography, on his majestic arrival in Addis Ababa, on Liberation Day. All right, so let's read the speech. No human lips can express the gratitude which I feel to the merciful God, the merciful Elohim, who has enabled me to stand in your midst. These are really important words, and we can base these scripturally so we can understand what we're talking about. The water of separation. And He is that water of separation. In your midst on this day. No human lips. Let's if you'll bear with I and I, you know what I mean? Let's go back to catch up where we were at. In your midst, right? In your midst on this day. of which the angels in heaven and creatures on earth could neither have thought of nor known about. Before everything else, I want to tell you to make you understand that this is a day on which a fresh chapter of history of the new Ethiopia begins. In the new era, new work is commencing. So we have new work, brothers and sisters, this job. New work is commencing, which is the duty of all of us to perform. So if we all as black peoples, as Ethiopian peoples, as righteous peoples, as Rastafari and all peoples, all righteous among so-called all races, right? If they came together and the true Ethiopians will come together in this structure that's given for us as a template by the one true God, right? We would understand that it is our duty. It's the duty of all of us to perform this, and then we'll be sovereign in law. We would have our Rastafari spirituality and religious rights, because that's exactly what we're fighting for. You know what I mean? Our spiritual rights and our rights in the court system, instead of watching, our children, say, for example, be shot and they just get away with it in court, or they just do us any kind of way, have us locked up for marijuana, which is a Rastafari sacramental right, because it is used in the ritual ceremonies of prayers, of strong prayers and giving praises to the one true God in our temples, right? Which is our sovereignty, our freedom. So no human lips. Second paragraph, brothers and sisters. As we remember the affliction which befell Ethiopia, which had preserved her independence for many thousand years, was attacked in 1888 EC, 1895 by Italy, which had harbored aggressive designs against her, right? Which had harbored aggressive designs against her. So as we can see here, so Italy, and we want to speak on this because we want to go a little bit backwards. Ethiopia, which had preserved her independence for many thousand years, was attacked in 1888 EC, 1895 through 6 by Italy. So pay attention to this. Because she maintained right her independence for many thousand years, right? But then all of a sudden this was attacked suddenly in 1888 EC, 1895 Gregorian time, right? On the so-called Gentile calendar, 1895 through 6, this American calendar, the Gregorian calendar, by Italy, which had harbored Italy, right? Italy attacks her after thousands of years, which had harbored aggressive designs. They were designing things against Mama Ethiopia, which is undermined as Mama Africa in modern day terms, right? That's really what it means, right? Because the word African is not a word that the so-called peoples got together and chosen, right? So anyway, designs, right, against her for many years, and intended to destroy Ethiopia's freedom. Her brave sons fought at Adwa, and she retained her independence. The Treaty of Wukale was not the only cause of the battle that was fought at Adwa. So there was a treaty that was obviously broken. So there was a treaty that was broken. The enemy broken the treaty, right? Just like we live in a time where they have broken the treaty against us for 50 years, about strong, for our Ishans, our sacramental use, for our marijuana and our Ishans, our sacramental righteousness, right? take away the Kaddish sacramental rites, but we got to bring it to them. We got to show them what it is. So it was only a pretext for the ongoing aim that Italy had of ruling Ethiopia. Although the Great European War interrupted her plans for a time, notwithstanding her outward pretensions of friendship, pretending to be friendly. Italy made preparations to invade Ethiopia. Since her defeat at Adwa, she had been irate that justice prevailed against her. Right? Since her defeat at Adwa. When Italy began to wage a war of aggression against Ethiopia, although we knew we were not so well armed as she was, right? In Babylon, the people outnumbered in arms, right? We countered with what strength? Now, how did this story that we're reading right here? If we look at current African Americans and the black and brown peoples of the world, Mexicanos, Puerto Ricans, the other peoples, the other names that they call themselves besides the Ethiopian peoples that they be, right? Or the children of Israel, the children of the high living, the Elohei, Elohai, Baruchu, Jah, Rastafari, the Salah, the Shalom, the Geramawi Haile Selassie, Baruchu. The children of the Most High God, Jah, Rastafari, right? How did they fall from this name? Fall from this name to a position of ignorance to see that these things fit them as a people. Because, of course, all of this time that this is happening, this attack on Ethiopia, years come to later in 1940s and 45, you have the invasion of Ethiopia by Mussolini. You have the invasion of Ethiopia by Mussolini, who was working with Hitler, which was the Nazis who went into what they call the Jewish Holocaust. The Jewish Holocaust. So this is very, very important because this is the root of that culture. So in order to destroy the root of so-called Jewish culture, they went to Ethiopia. That's why they went to the land where the King of Kings was. That's why Hitler sent Mussolini to Ethiopia, because Hitler is the one who really sent Mussolini. Mussolini was fighting on Hitler's side, right? So Hitler is an enemy to righteous humanity, really, because he killed a lot of his own people. I mean, so it wasn't even about that. That's probably what the Klansmen will fool themselves. They'll see that Hitler, he really murdered most of his own people. Most of the time he was murdering his own people. You know what I mean? Even though he was the enemy of humanity, period. Nostradamus says that Nostradamus called him the second Antichrist, or the third one of the two. But where were we? As we remember the affliction which befell Ethiopia, which had preserved her independence. Hold on. Shalom. We on this paragraph actually, right? Where we were speaking about even although we knew we were not so well armed as she was, but you have to pay attention, because in Babylon, in America, if you look at blacks, where they are most all over the world, that you're not so well armed as as Goliath, as the beast. You know what I'm saying? The big fish that eats up the small fish, the big world system, the big European bully, right? You're not so as well armed as they are as the District of Columbia and whatnot, right? So although we knew we were not so well armed as she was, we countered. Why? How do we counter? We counter with what strength we could muster, because it was our duty to resist an enemy that had come to seize our country. But as it was apparent that she was bent on exterminating our people with poison gas, the use of which was prohibited by international law, right? international law, cigarettes, right? So this is, but see, the application of it. The funny thing is that the application, because the poisonous gas, because gas could be a water. It could be a water, you know what I'm saying, or it could even form into a solid or a liquid, right? But this this poisonous gas, right? She was bent on exterminating our people with poison gas. So there's always this method to sell poison or to bring about poison. But then people are locked up for the healing plant marijuana, which is the healing plant. But the trick is that they trick them and say, well, it's not the healing plant. But then they give them cigarettes, which kills more people. If you look in the United States a year than any other drug, cigarettes killed more people than that, right? So she was bent on exterminating our people with poison gas, but this time in Ethiopia, we're speaking about literal poison gases being dropped from airplanes and basically war crimes against the people. War crimes against the people. And we remember this day because that's what this is about. The use of which was prohibited by international law. So it was already prohibited by international law. That use of poisonous gas, cigarettes, right? It's the chemicals in the cigarettes. We're not talking about you smoke tobacco, you know what I'm saying? But you don't understand the chemicals that are actually in the cigarette products from the companies that you get them from. Right? And the use of which was prohibited by international law. We went to appeal to the League of Nations, right? So this was appealed at the League of Nations and claimed justice, and that's what Rastafari must do in these Babylonian court systems, is appeal them at all time with petitions and as much in the laws that we can do, even though we might not be so well armed, and we still must go and appeal them and claim justice in order to get justice, because we are a government. We are a functioning government. Ethiopia is the religious government of the spirituality known as Rastafari. Wake up out there, people. Come together and we can overcome the evil, overcome the beast, overcome the shortcoming. As it was far-eyed, as it was feared, as it was feared that the hostility started by Italy might spread all over the world. Pay attention to this. So now there was a fear, right? There was the far eye. The far eye had came to warn them of the fear of Italy, right? Of Italy of the hostility of Italy spreading all over the world, which is a type of fashionism, which is a forceful like a forcing fashionism government, right? And a lot of people don't understand this. And we're not talking about the many little sovereignty groups that nationalize and rise up against the government, like what they're doing in Ukraine right now, which is interesting because it all goes from it comes from the hostility of the spirit which Italy was carrying at this time. This evil spirit, this evil force of immoral fashionism, right? Hostility started by Italy. Hold on. One second. I know. It occurred that. You gotta get that back up. And we'll take a pause for the call's eyes, and we'll finish this on the second part. All right, shalom.